Welcome everybody to that JRPG podcast episode 7. Today we've got one of my 10 favorite JRPGs of all time, and actually my favorite Shin Megami Tensei ever, and that is Devil Survivor. Today I'll be covering both versions, the Nintendo DS and the 3DS version, which is an enhanced port with expanded story and a couple of extra episodes and new demons and rebalanced difficulty. And I'll be able to tell you the differences between both versions, despite not having played these games in several years. Well, they're still kind of stuck in my memory because I've beaten both versions multiple times and I've gotten every single possible ending out of them. You could say that maybe I 100% at these games. This is one of the very few video games or RPGs in existence that I've 100% completed in my life. And I'm here to talk about them. Well, it's just one game, but I'll be covering both versions. So, for those who don't know, Devil Survivor is a game that was developed by Atlus. But other companies, other people, other important people participated in this game, including the famous writer Joe Haduki, who also happened to wrote the story in some Langrisser games, and most notably every single Growlancer game. You already know I'm a diehard fan of Growlancer, so this guy is one of my favorite writers in video games. Of course, no one can beat Masato Kato, my favorite. Tetsuya Takahashi is another genius, but if I had to make a top 3, this guy will probably be number 2 or number 3. Yo Haduki. Alright, so it was pretty much developed by the usual team of Atlus, but also co-developed by some of the people from Growlancer, previously known as Careersoft, also known as Team Career, who were the developers of Growlancer before they got absorbed into Atlus. And also, believe it or not, in terms of design, programming, and backgrounds and stuff, a lot of people don't know this, but there was a little bit of help by Media Vision, the creators of Wild Arms. I didn't know that. Until recently, I was like, oh my god. When I was doing research for this episode, I was like, dude, these guys helped out. Which is with the background, some of the scenery, some of the programming scenery, not much, like 90% of the game is still just Atlus and Team Career or Careersoft, okay? But to know that Media Vision helped somehow, it's just like a little interesting piece of trivia. The Wild Arms and Valkyria Chronicles team helped in this game, like I didn't know that. Anyway, so as usual, I'll be covering the story, the characters, the gameplay mechanics, the music, the battle system, and I'll leave the spoilers at the very, very end. Okay? First, how I found out about this game is, well, it's actually nothing special. I was just sitting on my ass at my retro store when I had one. I wanted to play as many Nintendo DS RPGs as I could back then, and I came across this one. I was like, oh, this is considered as one of the best, in some forums and some websites, and I was like, okay, it's a Shin Megami Tensei game, so it's probably going to be brutal. Let's check it out. And yes, it was fucking brutal. But we'll get to that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay? We'll get to the difficulty this game is very, very well known for. Especially the original version. The 3DS version was rebalanced, but we'll get to the differences between the difficulty in both versions. So that's just simply how I came across the game. So now, with that out of the way... let's begin with the story. So, it's a survival horror game. No, really, if you think about it, in terms of gameplay, of course it's not. But in terms of story, it's about demons invading Tokyo and the government doing some kind of lockdown. Yeah, we're all very familiar with that word nowadays. Especially after what happened 4 years ago. But this is a game that came out in 2009. Developed throughout the entirety of 2008. So, yeah, it's like maybe they predicted the future, man. So, 2009, and then a couple of years later in 2011, that was the 3DS port called Overclocked. So, it's about this these kids who are like a little bit of on the tech side. You got these three best friends who are the silent protagonist and his two buddies, Atsuro and Yusu. This is well, I'm gonna have to admit right now that in terms of story, this game is a masterpiece. But in terms of characters, I felt that the characters were a bit stereotyped. Well, not a bit stereotyped, actually, not that much, but stereotyped nonetheless. And some of these characters are kind of hard to like and they take forever to grow on you, or they simply never grow on you. We'll get to the character section in a bit. So yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that Yo Haduki probably wrote these characters because he's used to doing these types of characters since the Langrisser Growlancer era. And he's never been about, creating these super originally unique characters. Instead, he's known for creating these okay characters, kind of stereotyped, but characters that grow on you and they go through some intense development, and that's exactly, it's the same case with Devil Survivor. So, the demons have invaded, the government has declared a lockdown in Tokyo to avoid the demons from getting out, and that's basically their goal, to get out. But of course, like in any story from this guy, it's like in the Tales series, the game start about one thing, and that's the basic plot, you gotta like find a way to escape the lockdown or find a way to survive. And that's the basic gist of the game. But of course, as the story progresses, it turns into something else, and then something else, and then something else. And I mean it, because this, like everything written by this guy, Yo Haduki, is a game with multiple routes and endings. And this is a true role-playing game. Like Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, like the Growlancer series, like almost every single Shin Megami Tensei game. Why am I saying that? Because this is a game where your decisions matter. Unlike 90% of JRPGs out there with linear stories, some of these are freaking great. Xenogears, for example, that I covered before, Nier Replicant, there's Nier Replicant does have some like ending shenanigans, but there aren't any roots, they're linear games. Amazing stories and whatnot, but what I consider as a true role-playing game in terms of story is one where you're actually role-playing, where your decisions affect the story, the ending, the outcome, the reactions, who joins you, who leaves, who hates you, who loves you, that's what I mean. And this is one of them. So, and this is a game that, unlike many other SMT games, like Nocturne, for example, in Nocturne, you every now and then make these decisions that seem kind of irrelevant, but they're like really important decisions. Start like halfway through the game, and from there, where in Devil Survivor, your decisions matter almost from the start. Some of the first decisions you make in this game are like really crucially important, and there's a lot of those decisions. It's not just like 2, 3, 4, 5 decisions that change or shape the routes or endings or you'll get. No, it's like a crap ton of decisions that influence what's gonna happen. So we'll get to the gameplay mechanics later. Let's just say that you will absolutely need a guide for this game if you want to get the right routes and the right endings, or basically the right answers, and also about what to do in certain situations. Anyway, so the story is very well written. This is a story that brings out the best and also the worst of humanity. And of course, you see more of one side or a different perspective or one side, depending on the route you choose. So I'm gonna leave it at that because what I want to say about the story requires a lot of spoilers. So I'll save that for the spoiler section. But let's just say that this is an incredibly well-written story, and it doesn't show at the beginning. You play this game for the first several hours and you're gonna be like, well, the story's alright, but it's nothing special, it's just these kids, these stereotyped characters who are trying to get out, to find out what's going on, why is the government hiding things, they're just trying to survive, and to get out, it's not like, Erick told me this was a fantastic story and I'm 5 hours in and I see nothing extraordinary. No, you need to like start slowly getting to those points where they start those hooks, those plot twists, or those situations where you're like, oh my god, the characters could have done this and instead they did this, or these police people, the police is doing this, or the government is doing that, or these other characters, there's this cult, there's this religious cult, led by this character Amane. So yeah, it's like really interesting. It slowly starts pulling you in until when you finish the game on any route, you're like, wow, man, what an amazing story. Great story. So now, let's move on to the characters. There's a crap ton of important characters in this game, but I'm only going to cover the ones that are like playable. And I'll be real quick because there's even the playable ones are still a crap ton. Okay. The protagonist is a silent protagonist, male. He's just there, He looks kind of interesting, but at the same time, he's just kind of there to represent the player. What's interesting about this game, and I mentioned a few minutes ago, is that these kids, especially the protagonist and Atsuro, not Yuzu. Yuzu is just the girl who hangs out with these two guys because, I don't know, maybe she has nothing to do. Like, I've always felt that, well, I've never been in Japan. If you live in Japan or if you've ever been there several times, well, if you want to share an experience, let us know. But I doubt any of you live in Japan, maybe with the exception of Sultan. So, I grew up in Mexico, of course, and I've lived here most of my life, and I'm still living here. And when I was in school, characters like people like Yuzu never hung out with nerds or tech nerds or geeks, or it's just no. That was impossible, absolutely impossible and ridiculous, unthinkable. Girls like Yuzu were hanging out with people like her, It's been like this in Mexico. I don't know if in the US or UK or Venezuela or I don't know where the hell you live. If it was different, let me know. But in my country, it was definitely not like that. So every time I see these types of characters like Yuzu hanging out with characters like Atsuro or the protagonist, it's like, what the hell is she doing with them? A girl like that would never hang out unless she was a geek herself. And Yuzu is just not. She's just a girl that's interested in fashion and the next trending and J-pop and stuff like that and girly stuff. What the fuck's she doing with guys that are obsessed with video games and consoles and technology and computers and whatnot? It's like, well, this friendship doesn't really make any sense, But that's also what's interesting about anime, and Japanese anime and video games and stuff like that. I don't know if real people in real life are like that in Japan. I don't know. But from what I've seen in anime series, they are like, it's a cliche, right? To have that one character, usually a girl, hanging out with these fucking nerds or geeks, probably to appeal to the male audience, to the geek audiences right there. Like, who wouldn't want to hang out with a girl like Yuzu because she's so hot and sexy and blah, blah, blah. But, inside she's kind of shallow. So I just ended up telling you about Yuzu instead of focusing on the protagonist. Well, okay, that's Yuzu in a nutshell, and she's a pain in the ass. She's a bit of an annoying character. She actually never grew on me. I kind of hated her at the beginning. Not at the beginning, like for most of the game. Near the end, she grew on me, but not that much to say, oh my god, what a turnaround. Because there's been characters before in a lot of JRPGs now that start off kind of annoying, but slowly you start caring more and more about them, and at the end you're like, oh, I like this character, It's at the beginning I hated her or him, and now, I'm a big fan, But Yuzu is just not the case. But at least at the end when I finished the game, I was like, okay, I don't hate Yuzu anymore. I understand some of her motivations and what she went through and blah, blah, blah. But let's just leave it at that, okay? She doesn't get the best development. In fact, in my opinion, she gets kind of like a mediocre development. The game focuses a bit more on the other characters. But I feel like Yuzu grows up and she comes to understand certain things that she didn't before. So she matures a little bit. But still, she's kind of almost 100% the same fucking annoying girl she was at the beginning. So, I don't know, for a female co-star, it wasn't a great idea, to be honest, but it kind of fits in because it's the appealing, sexy character, it's like Yukari. Okay, Yukari from Persona 3. It's like the same, man. They have very different personalities, but they're like that girl who's hot, and everybody is interested in her, and she's like into fashion and makeup and girly stuff and whatnot, and she cares nothing about technology, video games, computers, blah, 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 they care nothing about that. So, it's like that. So that's Yuzu, okay? I don't think that was the best female co-star for a game like this, but she's there. She serves an important purpose, and I don't know. There's one ending that's I don't want to say the canon ending because I don't feel like this game has a canon or true ending, to be honest. But like the regular common ending, it's got to do a lot with her. We'll get to that in the spoiler section. So the protagonist, going back to the protagonist, he's kind of like, okay, he's your average guy, he makes decisions. And in a lot of JRPGs, where your characters are silent but make a lot of decisions, you kind of start seeing that shape in their personality. And because this is a game with multiple routes and endings, once you get to the end, you're like, oh, my character ended up being this evil motherfucker, or this like really nice guy, or this, rational, intellectual, So, yeah, in the end, the personality goes along with your journey and the decisions you make. But unlike the Growlancer series, where the decisions are a bit more refined and have more personality, even though this is a game written by the same author, I felt like the decisions in Devil Survivor are more about, about making decisions, about making choices, but not really, they don't add a lot to the personality of the main character. That's what I'm trying to say. So, in terms of silent protagonists, let's just say that this guy is not one of the best silent protagonists, but it's also not one of the worst. He's just another everyday silent protagonist, but the choices do matter, and you gotta shape your personality just a bit by making these decisions and getting different routes and endings. Atsuro seems to be like the guy with the most dialogue in the game and one of the most important characters. He's basically your male co-star and your sidekick, and he's obsessed with technology and the next new thing about, computers and blah, blah, blah. In fact, one very unique thing about this game is that the characters use Nintendo DS. They aren't called Nintendo DS on the game, but you look at the drawing, it's like identical. That's a Nintendo DS, and they use a Nintendo DS to summon demons. I always thought that was like ridiculous and stupid, but at the same time, I was like, well, they're trying to appeal to Nintendo, maybe, and they did it to. They thought it was funny, or they really thought that the developers thought that the Nintendo DS was so cool, it needed to be a thing in the game. So Atsuro has one of these things, and once he gets his hands on one, he's like, oh my god, he nerds out, So Atsuro is like the guy a lot of us are going to relate to. I'll be honest, I'm more. Yes, I'm a geek, I play video games, I fucking love video games. Video games are my life and stuff like that, but I'm not really a technology nerd. I see a computer and I see algebra. I'll be honest, Why? Because I didn't grow up with computers, it's not my generation. I grew up with a freaking Walkman, or a Discman. I grew up with cassettes, VHS tapes, CDs, CRTs, NES, Super Nintendo, I didn't get a computer until I was like 13 years old, man. So, yeah, okay, maybe I did grow up with one, but it was like this huge fucking thing that it was so ancient and primitive. Windows 95, I grew up with that shit. So, while I do relate a bit with the character of Atsuro, at the same time, I don't relate that much because he seems to represent the modern young audience from back then in 2008, 2009. So I lived through that era, but I was already an adult. I was like 23 years old, 24, right? So, but yeah, he pretty much represents the gamer or the geek in all of us, right? He's a cool character, and what I like about this character the most is that he can be a bit annoying at times, but he gets incredible development, and he also has his own route and ending. You can choose his route and ending with a guide, of course, but it gets like really intense. Like Atsuro is one of those characters in this game that starts developing these really strong opinions about what's going on, about the government, about technology, about the demons, about the decisions your protagonist is making, and that's what makes him such a powerful character. He's a bit like, what's this guy's name in Persona 4, Yusuke? Kind of like that. Like at the beginning, you're like, oh, this guy's just the sidekick, he's just dumb and makes dumb jokes and blah, blah, blah. But as the story progresses, Yusuke gets involved a lot, and he makes these really strong arguments, strong opinions. He ends up with a really strong personality and going through some serious shit. And that's what happens with Atsuro in this game. So that was fucking incredible, well, he starts off as one of the least interesting protagonists, but near the end of the game, he's like one of the best characters in the game. As a unit, well, we'll get to that, okay? Anyway, moving on to, I want to cover Naoya. Naoya is one of the most intriguing characters in the game. He's an intellectual, but he's also an evil bastard. Emotions play zero role in this guy. He just wants to be... Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but he's that one guy that's kind of like, you never know what he's thinking. Has a lot of plans. He's kind of Machiavellian, you know? That kind of character who's has an agenda. An agenda, never tells you shit. He only tells you what he thinks is necessary for you to know to fulfill his plans. He's an egotistical motherfucker, you know? A selfish bitch, you know? This guy... You're gonna love him and hate him at the same time. In some occasions, you're gonna be like, fuck this guy, I hope he dies. And then the next day, you know, the next situation, you're like, oh my god, he's right. He's so full of it, but he's fucking right. You know, and he also has his own route and ending. And it's honestly one of the best and most interesting endings and routes in the game. But, again, spoilers. Alright, so Naoya has that kind of personality. He's okay in my book, you know. Interesting character, interesting ally/antagonist, believe it or not. So, yeah, great character. Then there's Midori and Keisuke. So, Keisuke, he's just your average guy. He's a bit nerdy, you know, he's the class A, the A+ student, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, he's like Atsuro, okay? At the beginning, he's like, you know, this guy's just meh. He looks like an NPC, like, what's he doing here? And dude, he also gets this really intense development, intense situations. Remember when I mentioned at the beginning, doing the story, that this is a game that has a lot of, it brings out the best and the worst in humanity? Well, you can see that through the characters themselves. It also brings out the worst and the best about Keisuke, Yusu, or Atsuro, you know, and other characters, you know. What I'm trying to say is that despite these characters being kind of annoying and generic at first, you know, they do get these really intense development in like hardcore situations where you either relate, even if you don't, whether you relate or not with the situations in this game or what the characters are going through, you're gonna eventually start strongly agreeing with them or strongly disagreeing with them. And you see how passionate they start getting because they are living in a desperate situation where it's about we end up here locked down and die, get killed by demons, or we just wait it out and miraculously survive when the government kills all demons, or, you know, it throws you in a desperate situation. And now that every single one of you has lived through a pandemic, which is different, right? But if you just translate the demons, if you compare the demons, you know, in this game with the virus, the COVID-19, you know, it's kind of like the same. And it brings out the worst in people out there. Situations like this, you know, bring out the worst in people. And look at society nowadays. Look at this fucking pandemic and the lockdown from 4 years ago did to society, did to the economy, did to everything. So that's Devil Survivor for you. That's why this game is extremely relevant nowadays. So that's Keisuke for you. He's just another Atsuro, very different in terms of personality and hobbies and passions and stuff. But at the same time, he's just like Atsuro in the sense of getting these really strong opinions and these really intense arguments and stuff like that. And then there's Midori, who is basically an otaku cosplay girl, stuff like that. She's cute and whatnot, but she's also a fucking idiot. And, she never grows on you. She has appeal because, yeah, she likes anime. We like anime. She likes video games. We like video games. She cosplays, you know, and she's very pretty, you know, with long hair and glasses, nerdy glasses, you know, so of course, right? But in terms of personality, this is the most annoying fucking bitch in the entire game. And there's a few missions, we'll get to this in the gameplay mechanics, there's a few missions that are so annoying and make you fucking despise her. She's an okay character as a unit. Again, we'll get to that, you know, but as a character herself, you know, she's just annoying. You just want her to fuck off. You know, you kind of want her, but, well, okay, you want her, well... I have very mixed feelings with Midori, but I think it's a like-dislike relationship, or more like a like-hate relationship. I don't love her, you know, I kind of like some of her, but I think I hate her a bit more, you know, she's just there, and she doesn't get the best development, Eventually, she starts getting a bit more quiet or a bit more reasonable about certain things, but she freaks out often. She gets into stupid situations. She's reckless. She's dumb. Oh my god. Yeah, she's like, I don't know. I've seen 7, 8-year-old lolis in JRPGs that are far better characters than Midori. I'm not saying she's a bad character, but dude, she's like the worst fucking character in the game. That's all I have to say about Midori. I guess I'll leave it like that because all the other characters are like spoiler characters. We got Amane, who is like the leader of the religious cult. They're all like, oh, come together, to pray and, wait it out and stuff like that. Don't fight, stuff like that. But Amane is like a really quiet girl, never smiles. She talks like in a really quiet tone. That kind of female character in video games, Like she's smart, but she's shy. Stuff like that. I like this character a lot because she's not one of my favorites in the game, but she is a character that also gets this interesting development, and little by little she starts breaking, and I love that. A character like this that's always trying to keep her cool. It's a cliche that even happens in movies, in Western movies, or series, Characters like this, like, slowly start breaking, and they start like, what am I gonna do? I have a lot of perspectives and opinions weighing on me, and pressuring me, pushing me, and to my limits. That's the kind of character Amane is. Great character, greatly written character, and she also has her own roots, stuff like that. So, interesting party member, and she's one of the best mages in the game. Let me tell you right away. We got other characters such as Jin, Kaido. Kaido is like really passionate and badass, he's always angry, edgy as fuck. While Jin is always like the cool kind of bartender guy, always trying to keep his cool, but also like with strong convictions. These characters are interesting. They aren't what I consider as the main cast because they're just not, and they're kind of optional. They don't join you unless you choose their route, and that's it. So they're interesting characters. They add a lot to the plot, but okay, they are the occasional characters. Same with Isuna or Mari. Mari, the one thing, she's like the classic, she's a nurse, she's a doctor, and she's like really nice, considerate, kind of like, I don't want to say an airhead, she's really smart, the opposite of an airhead, but she puts up this airhead front, like just being okay with everything, smiling, and being protective, stuff like that. But she also gets really interesting development. And there's a couple of routes where she joins you. And she is the best mage in the game, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to say that Amane is the best. No. Mari is the best mage, the best magic user in the game. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, interesting character. That's all with the characters, guys. We're done with the characters. Okay, there's a lot more to cover, like the singer, for example. No. We're not getting into that. So let's start with the gameplay mechanics. What's this game about? Well, I just told you several of the gameplay mechanics already. This is a game with multiple routes and endings, but it's menu based. This isn't one of those games or like one of those Shin Megami Tensei games where you dungeon crawl in first person. No. But it's also not a game where you directly manually control your character and move around to talk to people and go from town to town. No. The entire game takes place in Tokyo, and you visit different districts in a menu. Okay, you got your options like go here, go there in an option, and you get to watch a bunch of cutscenes and like scenes like dialogue. Yes, warning, the game's got a lot of dialogue. Not Trails level of dialogue, okay? More like Grow Lancer level of dialogue. Some scenes, you're gonna have to be sitting there for like 10 minutes just reading, probably a maximum of 10 minutes, The dialogue isn't that, like, huge. Like, this is nowhere close to the Trails series. If you've played any of the Trails games, you should know. So don't worry, you're not gonna be reading a lot, but there's a lot of dialogue. However, the game does have some slice of life shenanigans and stuff like that. Most of the story like pulls you in. It's interesting and it's important to read. It's important to see through, and you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it because it will start shaping your own perception. and you're gonna have your own agreements and disagreements with the characters and with the situations. It's a fabulous game, it's very immersive, a very immersive plot. So it's one of those games and stories that make you feel like you are a part of the story. So, and that's a gameplay mechanic, because it is your choice, your decisions that matter and affect the roots and endings and relationship with the characters. So about that, like I said, I'm going to give you some advice right now. Like, the best thing you can do with this game is, on your first playthrough, is do not read a guide. Or read a guide only if you can beat a boss or a specific mission. Trust me, you will fucking need it. But when it comes to story, like, oh my god, what would be the best decision for this or that, I don't know. If you're that kind of guy, I respect that, if you want to get like the true ending or the best ending possible, or everything right, and avoid killing someone by mistake, or make the decision that doesn't lead to someone's death, because there is permadeath here, not in battle. No, don't worry. If a character dies in battle, he simply retreats, or her. But in terms of story, some characters, depending on your choices, can die forever for the rest of the game. Okay? So the magic of this game is that you gotta play it like completely blind and just trust your decisions and stick to your decisions, even if they lead to catastrophic endings or bad endings or events. It's just better that way. Because after all, this game isn't that long, One simple playthrough, without trying to get all those routes and endings, just one route, one ending, it's not even gonna take you 20 hours, I think. Well, the grinding might increase. We'll talk about the difficulty in a bit. But 20 to 25 hours max. But I think it's like a little bit less than 20 hours, any route or ending. Unless you want to, you're a completionist, you want to get everything, and blah, 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 or you're playing on the hardest difficulty, stuff like that. Well, the original version, well, I guess I haven't said this because I assume most of you listening know this, but in case you don't, this is a strategy RPG, a grid-based strategy RPG, not like Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem. This is its own thing. It's very unique and original. You move on grids, but once you make contact with an enemy, a turn-based battle with a shortened version of the press turn system begins. Okay? Well, it isn't exactly press turn. It's more like if you... Well, yeah, it is. It is. Kind of is. If you exploit an enemy's weakness, if one of your characters exploit an enemy's weakness, that character gets an extra turn. So you have one character who is the main character, or Yuzu, or Atsuro, or Keisuke, or Midori, or etc., and two demons fighting by their sides, left and right. So, that's it. And that's cool. I like that, because I didn't want this game to be, full of just demons. The fighting was being done by just the demons. I thought, for a game like this with multiple routes and endings, so you can get more attached to the characters, it was imperative to have the characters themselves fight and be controlled by the player, and grow. While you do not have a skill tree here, you can crack skills, you can steal skills from enemies. Some characters learn skills as they advance, but they start focusing on certain elements or certain types of attacks. You got the classic character who focuses on physical attacks, or the buffer, or the mage, stuff like that, right? But you can also alter this a little bit, Their stats are not going to change. There's no class system here. It's not that Yuzu, you cannot make her like a regular fighter, her stats whenever she levels up. Her attack power is not going to increase a lot just because you did this or that. No, she's going to be a mage, and that's it. All right, but you can twist a little bit about these things, because you can steal skills from enemies. Of course, if you want to steal specific or crack a specific skill from this demon, you're going to have to defeat that demon with that specific character. Like if you want Yuzu to learn this specific passive skill, because passive skills are really important in this game. I'll get to that in a bit. But so if you want Yuzu to learn that skill from that demon, you're going to have to kill that demon with Yuzu. Okay, that's the only way to get the skills. So it's a pain in the ass because of that. That's what part of the difficulty comes in. But trust me, you wanna as many useful skills as possible, because it is imperative to do that, and especially the passive skills, which are like at the beginning of the battle, you get more speed, or your entire roster gets to act first, or you're immune to magic, for one turn, or you're like super fast, or these passive skills that some of the enemies have, you need to steal them. That's the best advice I can give you, because these are some of the best fucking skills in the game. And of course, the healing spells, the ones that heal the whole party. But you can also have a demon do that, It's all about the strategies you can come up with every single set of characters, every single small party. A specific character and their 2 demons. You can, this is like, classic Shin Megami Tensei is there, there's a demon compendium and a demon shop or whatever, I forget the name, where you go there and you can, participate in auctions to win demons, and you can fuse them, that's classic, and I'm not gonna explain that because that's every SMT game, even Persona game for you, okay, you already know that. So that's also available in this game. The auction system can be a bit of a pain because it costs money, so you're gonna have to, if you want that specific demon, it's there, you're gonna have to grind for money. This game, you're probably wondering at this point, is this a grind fest? Yes. The 3DS version, which was rebalanced, is a bit less grindy, but the original Nintendo DS version is a grind fest because it's just a very, very, very difficult game. But let me explain to you why this game is so difficult. It's not just because you want that demon or this demon, or you want that skill, that's part of the difficulty. Or it's not because the enemies are so smart and are a pain in the ass to kill or something. No, yeah, they are like that, but that's not really a big deal. The biggest fucking deal in this game is the mission objectives. This is something I've complained about a million times in a million videos before. Whenever I talk about this game, it's like almost impossible for me not to bring up these missions that are ridiculous. I also want to praise it because the game has a lot of objective missions, different objectives. You know how in most strategy RPGs you get this kill all enemies or endure, and that's it, right? That's most strategy RPGs for you. But in Devil Survivor, it's most missions have okay, go stop this demon from escaping, or save these 2 NPCs from getting killed, or escort missions, escort these NPCs safely to the other side, or prevent these characters from doing this, or from killing this other character, And there are some really hardcore missions because of that. You can be even overpowered and overleveled, and these missions in the Nintendo DS version, they will still give you trouble because, to make matters worse, you got a difficult game to deal with. You got strong demons, smart enemy AI, and yeah, okay. So that was a part that was rebalanced in the 3DS version. A lot of people seem to believe that, yes, that the 3DS version is the best one to go. If you can't get your hands on the 3DS version, okay, stick to the Nintendo DS version, but I recommend the 3DS version over the Nintendo DS version because the mission objectives weren't rebalanced. You're still going to have to deal with that one mission where you have to prevent this demon from escaping, okay? And it's not any easier on the 3DS version, okay? But demons maybe hit a little bit less harder, okay? And you may do a little bit more damage to them. So it gives you more leeway to complete these really difficult and annoying missions than before, okay? Because before you gotta fight a bunch of demons to prevent this NPC from getting killed, and on a 3DS version, it's gonna be slightly easier to kill them. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that in terms of difficulty, the 3DS version is better, but the difference is not that big, okay? The 3DS version is still a really hard video game, let me tell you that, but the Nintendo DS version is just way harder. Okay, it just feels like that. Especially if it's your first time playing. I'll be honest, I may be a bit biased. Maybe if you've never played any version, and if you jump into the 3DS version, you're still gonna find that version very hard. I think what happened with me is that I beat the Nintendo DS version multiple times. So several years later, when I got my hands in Overclocked, the 3DS version, I already knew what to do in most situations. I grinded before this or that mission, so I knew what to do, so it was nowhere near as hard as my experience with the original version, okay? So, objectively speaking, there is a difference between the difficulty from both versions. The 3DS version, it's better, it's more balanced, but it's still hardcore. That's all I'm trying to say. And plus, I don't remember. I think the Nintendo DS version does not have an easy mode. The 3DS version does. I don't think I ever played the easy mode in that game. Because I felt confident. I was like, dude, I come from beating this fucking hardcore DS game, one of the hardest Nintendo DS games ever. And I'm not going to play the 3DS version on easy, right? So I played it on normal. I don't know how easy the easy mode on the 3DS version overclocked is. If you do, let people know in the chat or in the comments or wherever. So that's it for the battle mechanics. I think I explained it, the basics pretty well. And that's it for the gameplay mechanics. I think I'm missing something. Like I said, we'll get to that in a bit. But oh yeah, like remember when I bitched about Midori? Well, Midori has a couple of missions that are like save Midori. If Midori dies, it's game over, and you can't control her. She's like getting herself killed. Like instead of running away to a corner or running away from the demons, no, she's like runs towards the demons and starts attacking them on their level. In ridiculous missions, that's when you start hitting characters like Midori. And Keisuke as well. There's a couple of missions that involve Keisuke, like prevent him from dying. Or if he dies, you get locked in this route. And if he doesn't, you get locked into this other route. Or it's a lot like that. Okay, so going back to that, man, I have one thing to say. Oh, I think I already did, right? Yeah, I already gave you the advice that you should do a blind playthrough at first. It doesn't matter the ending you get, that's part of the magic. But this game has two features, You can do one of two things to get all the routes and endings in one playthrough. You can save on a different file, of course, or you can just start a new game plus, which is strongly advised, especially if you're playing the original Nintendo DS version. Okay, the best advice I can give you, the second best advice I can give you is that don't save on a different file or anything. Just beat the game no matter what happens and then start a new playthrough. And that's when you want to start doing separate save files. Okay, separate, because you're going to get like different routes and endings and whatnot, but you'll be able to have some leeway, you have some advantage, because while stats do not carry over or levels, depending on your choice on how well you perform, you may get different points at the end for a new game plus, especially in the 3DS version, and one or two demons may carry over. So imagine if you start a new playthrough, a new game plus, your protagonist is back to level 1, and if you manage to carry over one demon, that's the one demon you got at the end. So that's one overpowered motherfucker, So you're gonna destroy everything with that particular character. And it's great if you get two demons, because instead of putting those two demons for your main character, you give one of those overpowered, over-leveled demons to Atsuro or to Yuzu, who are your initial party members for a long time. I forgot to say that you're not gonna get a fourth party member in this game until like much later, For the first several missions, including that very infamous boss fight, you will only get 3 party members. So that's the best advice I can give you. It's just much better to do all the other routes and endings with having at least one overpowered demon. It carries you through. It carries you over. It just makes things a little bit easier. It's still gonna be a challenge. The challenge is not gonna go anywhere. Don't worry, because you'll only have like one demon. Most of you will get only one. Maybe some of you will get 2, but most of you will get only one overpowered demon, and that's it. But trust me, it helps a lot. That's the best advice I can give you. And last but not least, it's got that really infamous boss battle. That's this boss, and he's immune to every single one of your attacks, no matter the demon, no matter who you fight as. You can only hurt this motherfucker with one specific attack that the main character equips. Everybody else is probably going to be fighting the other demons, and once they're done, all they can do is stand by or heal the main character, And there's a specific demon that if you attack from a distance, it lets you attack twice. So that's the demon you want. I don't remember which demon it is. I'll look it up online. But this is a demon you need for this battle. It doesn't matter if you're playing the DS or 3DS version, okay? It's almost indispensable to have this demon in your party so you can attack twice and hurt the boss twice in one turn because he also heals himself. Oh yeah, he's one of the most annoying and unfair bosses in history. I bitched about this guy several times. He made it in my top 10 most unfair JRPG boss battles that I did like 5 years ago. He's there, and that motherfucker is there, and I fucking hate him. But nowadays I become so fond of this game that whenever I play it, I kind of look forward to that battle because I already know what to do, and I prepare. You're gonna have to grind, yeah, the usual stuff. So we've covered the gameplay mechanics. We've covered the battle system. The last thing that I need to tell you is that it's impossible to beat this to get all the routes and endings without a guide. This is like Chrono Trigger or Cross or the Grow Lancer games. I mean, it's impossible to figure it out for yourself, and because once you make a certain decision and you save after it, that's a point of no return. This game has 1,000,000 points of no return. So for your second playthrough, do yourself a favor and use a guide. You will need it. You won't be able to figure out how to save this character or how to lock yourself into this route or how to do this other route or get this ending or whatever and blah, blah, blah. And another thing that I want to mention is that the 3DS version has some expanded story. Okay, there are some chapters, for example, remember the regular ending? I'm not going to spoil it, but remember the regular ending that I mentioned with Yuzu? That's not really the canon ending, but it kind of feels like it, Okay, that's it. That's a really boring ending in the original version. You get that ending and it's like, oh, that's it? The game ends and what? Is that really like the best ending they could come up with, No. But in the 3DS version, they expanded that. They added an extra chapter. You get that ending, and no, that's not really the ending. You get some kind of chapter 7, I think it's called. Yeah, I think it's called a chapter 7. So the game, instead, in the 3DS version, it doesn't end. So it just goes. There's an entire new chapter with fights and boss fights and missions and stuff like that. And then after that, if you stick to that route, you get a much better ending. And there are other endings like that. That, instead of just ending like in the DS version, you get an expanded version or an extra chapter. Okay? So this is why I strongly recommend you play the 3DS version. Do whatever it takes to get your hands on that version. But if you can't, well, there's the Nintendo DS version, which is still a magnificent game. But you won't get the full, complete definitive edition. And you will have to traverse through some hellhole of a game, some nightmare to make it through. Okay. The music. Oh my god. That's one hell of a soundtrack. This is composed by 3 people, but mostly by Takami Asano. Great composer. It's hard to find info on this guy or what he's done before, but he totally nailed it here. It's weird because I think what Atlus was aiming for when they made this game was I remember reading in the Wikipedia article that, I don't really trust Wikipedia anymore, even for things like this, because it's full of shit. It's a politically governed and possessed website. Yeah, it's completely biased nowadays. Finding accurate information on certain thing or certain people, it's impossible in this website anymore. They hide a lot of truths and historical facts from you. Yeah, fuck Wikipedia, right? But I guess for things like this, I see no reason for them to lie, right? Well, they say that Atlus was trying, Team Career, were trying to make the series, to make the games let me read the Wikipedia article, okay? It says here something really dumb, which I strongly disagree with. It says here, developed by the veterans of the Grow Lancer series, yeah, Team Career, with the goal being to expand the Megami Tensei series to a wider audience. Like, what? Its gameplay was reworked to appeal to newcomers. What? Who wrote that, man? And was that really the intent? This game, I feel like Nocturne, SMT4, SMT5 are appeal to a wider audience. This is a strategy RPG. Or maybe they meant in terms of story? Like you got these teenagers, trying to survive or save the world or escape or whatever ending you are aiming for. Okay, that appeals to a wider audience. But in terms of gameplay mechanics, how the fuck does a game like this appeal more than Shin Megami Tensei 4? I just don't get it. I disagree with that. That's all I wanted to say. Going back to the music, they may have hired a different composer other than Shoji Meguro or other than Ryota Kosuke. Well, Ryota Kosuke wasn't part of Atlus back then. So maybe they didn't have a choice. I was like, we got this Shoji Meguro, but we want this game to be different, to feel different. So they hired new people. They hired a new writer, Joe Haduki. They hired the Grow Lancer team. So yeah, it feels different. You play this game and you're like, this feels very different. But at the same time, it also has the soul, the Shin Megami Tensei soul. Because there's demons, the press turn system, the edgy storytelling, the dark, the religious themes, the philosophical themes, the roots and endings, chaos, light, neutral, whatever, So it's still Shin Megami Tensei. Takami Asano made the music. Fantastic music. It's just awesome. In some parts of the game, it doesn't really quite fit, but in most parts, it does fit. Like, I'm referring to that infamous regular battle theme where you grind. The optional battles, the free battles, where you grind, the like, dun, 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 dun. I love it. It grows on you, but at the beginning, it's like, what the hell am I listening to? But the fucking song, you listen to that song quite often because you're going to have to grind a lot in this game. It grows on you and you end up loving it. So, I don't know. Maybe they thought about that too when they made that song. Other composers are Kenichi Tsuchiya and Atsushi Kitajo. I don't know who those guys are, but they only helped out with a few themes here and there, and that was it. So Takami Asano is the guy here, and he composed most of the songs. Badass dude. I like the game. He's directed by Shinjiro Takara and also produced by him, but it is designed by Fuma Yato. So these are, like I was saying before, despite being mostly developed and produced by people from the Grow Lancer series, it still manages to maintain the soul of a Shin Megami Tensei game. So this is a spin-off, but dude, I don't care. This is the best Shin Megami Tensei game ever made, in my opinion. It's my favorite, okay? And it is precisely because of that. Not just because of the music or the gameplay mechanics, but because it still feels a lot like a Shin Megami Tensei game. And, well, the graphics in this game, it's a Nintendo DS and 3DS graphics. Most of the games didn't really stand out. They look like something like a little bit more advanced than the 16-bit, 32-bit era we were used to. The character sprites are a bit like normal size, but from a top-down view, So you get to see like a wider perspective of the battlefields. Dude, you're gonna kill me. I don't remember if the game is isometric. I think it is. Yeah. I think the perspective is isometric. Wow. Oh, anyway, so whatever the case, isometric or not, I think the map design, the world design, it feels good, great. The graphics are decent. What stands out the most is the character art by this guy. Kazuma Kaneko came back to design some demons, and a lot of the demons are based on his designs, but he wasn't like the main guy. The main guy was Susuhito Yasuda. So there's Akiko Koto, who did the backgrounds and stuff like that, but the character design was done by Susuhito Yasuda, who's known for the manga/anime series Durarara, which I strongly recommend, by the way. Great anime. I've seen the anime and never read the manga, but he's a great guy, great artist. And he also made the art of his shoot 'em up called Caladrius Blaze. Caladrius. So Caladrius, whatever you want to pronounce it. But I'll be honest, he's not one of my favorite artists out there. I like his art style, but I think I prefer Kazuma Kaneko, even for the human characters, than Yasuda. Okay, I respect Yasuda, and I like the character art style in Devil Survivor, but I think I like Kaneko more. Why? Probably because Yasuda has this really style of drawing characters from the side, instead of from up front. And when he does it up front, some characters look kind of weird or ugly. while others look prettier than on their side. It's kind of weird. And also some characters may look a little bit like deformed, just a tiny bit, like too skinny for my taste. But I don't know. It's just an observation. I like the graphics, I like the art style, and that's about it. Okay, people, Masterpiece. Masterpiece, strongly recommended game. I love it. You guys know that already. So do yourselves a favor and play it. If you like strategy RPGs and you like Shin Megami Tensei, this is an absolute must play. But what if you aren't a fan of strategy RPGs? Can you start with this one? Hell no! No! Well, unless, once again, you try to get into the easy mode of the 3DS version. Like I said, I repeat, I never play the game on easy. Someone's gotta know out there. Let us know, please, if it's like really easy for beginners, for example. But strategy RPGs for beginners, this is a no. This is for veterans. This is for people who are like experienced in the genre, or at least experienced in Shin Megami Tensei. Because if you don't like Shin Megami Tensei, like, don't bother with this game. It does feel like one, and it tried to be different, yeah, but it failed. Thankfully, it failed. It still feels like a Shin Megami Tensei game. So yeah, recommend it, love it, masterpiece. That's all I have to say. That's the end of my review, and I'm gonna start with the spoilers section. So if this is where you tune out, thank you for listening or watching, and I guess I'll see you next time. Spoilers begin in 3, 2, 1. Actually, there aren't that many spoilers to discuss, because since this is one of those games with multiple routes and endings, it's gonna take me like an entire hour or more to go through every route and ending and spoil it and talk about how I feel about them. But I'll just tell you some of my favorites. I really like well, I'll be honest. I can't decide which route or ending. Let's just stick with the endings. Which ending is like the best one? Okay, because there are so many ones that are out there that are good. There are some of them like there's a bad ending. That's what I couldn't say before. There's this bad ending where you basically try to escape recklessly with each other NPC, and you basically fail, you die, and it's game over, and that's it. That's your ending. It's a bad ending. You can get yourself locked into a bad ending, right? But it's okay to get that bad ending. It doesn't matter. So it's part of the magic of this game. But it's better if you don't get that bad ending, okay? It's not that obvious, okay? To get this bad ending, it's not that obvious. But I'm pretty sure most of you will be able to tell, like, oh no, I'm not going there because it smells fishy. If you have some experience with JRPGs before, you're like, nah, that's not a good idea to go there. Just no. So don't do that. But anyway, I found the Amane and Naoya routes the more interesting. The Atsuro route and ending is like a really good one too, but it feels like it was they were trying to go with something canon, something that could be considered as canonical, something that could be considered as a true ending, but at the same time they didn't want it to they didn't want the player to think of that as a good ending. So I don't know, the Atsuro ending feels kind of weird, but if you look it up online, most people will refer to this ending as like the best outcome possible. And yeah, I agree, it's either his ending or the Yuzu ending. Either of those two endings feel like the more regular common endings, like what most people would have done in their shoes, That's what I'm trying to say. So they're good endings, but I don't know. The Naoya ending and the Amane endings are more intense and more interesting. The Naoya ending is basically what I think of as the chaos ending. So not exactly evil, but not exactly good either, kind of like in the middle. And it's like the intellectual and philosophical ending, and once you get locked into this ending, the Naoya route, he becomes a party member, and he's also an incredibly good mage. This guy starts getting bonkers in philosophy, perspectives, and stuff like that. A lot more is revealed to you. He unloads the whole package to you, and you're like, holy shit, now you start seeing this character in a whole new light. So that's why I said at the beginning that Naoi is one of the most interesting allies slash antagonists of the game because of this. So the fact that you can ally yourself, with a guy like this, makes the journey and the ending worth it. And it's one of the most interesting endings. And at the end, you're like, holy crap, great ending. And then there's the Amane ending is, a lot of people don't like it. But like I said before, I like it because she's confronted with a lot of personal issues in her life and about religion. So this is the ending that might upset some people because of the religious themes, but she's not really a Catholic. That's her religion is her own thing. But I like the fact that it questions all of that, and it makes her question all of that. So it's a little bit more interesting. But at the same time, she sticks to her convictions. That's what makes it more interesting. So instead of changing the whole thing and Amane going like chaos or something like that, it's more of the light route. The light route, you get the ending and you're pretty much like the Messiah. Or no, I'm just kidding. Well, you're part of it already. So it's just the magic of the Shin Megami Tensei series. Now, there are some parts of this of this game that I would like to address, and that is the fact that some of the characters may die, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, for example, I remember there's this part, some decisions that are really tricky and are really timed. This is why I'm telling you, you need a guide to get all the different routes and endings and to have everyone survive or everyone alive. Well, actually, I think it's impossible to have every single character alive at the end because of the different routes and endings. Some characters cannot survive if you side with others. For example, Keisuke and Kaida, they kind of have a thing against each other, and you can actually get locked into a point where either one of them dies. And there's a mission, there's a battle in which, you either help Keisuke and kill Kaida, or you help Kaida and let him kill Keisuke, something like that. So it's hardcore. Like I said before, there's a story-wise permadeath, not gameplay-wise. Again, if one of your characters gets defeated, they simply retreat. Don't worry. But in terms of story, you can get one character killed for the rest of the game. Okay, so it's very important to use a guide. But the question here is, how do I feel about that? Because it's rare, it's like going back to Chrono Cross or Grow Lancer series or the Suikoden series, it's kind of like, it's rare to see a game where when you get, a lot of games, you get close to the ending and that one character dies permanently. And I'm not talking about Final Fantasy VII or stuff like that where a character dying is like scripted. I'm talking about games where your decision or one little choice led to a particular character dying. But it's also rare. How many JRPGs can you think of out there where some of your decisions can lead to a lot of characters dying, And this is Devil Survivor is just one of them. And I'm thinking by the same author, the Grow Lancer guy, Yo Haduki. It's like the Grow Lancer series. Yeah, maybe one decision can lead to a character dying, but it's like, no. Like, I'm thinking of Grow Lancer 5 and 6 right now. And, in 6, there's one possibility. If you don't do a specific side quest, this specific character dies. But it's like, I'm telling you, it's rare. Whereas here in Devil Survivor, it's like 2, 3, 4, 5 characters can fucking die. I'm serious. So that's intense. That also makes the journey and the story / gameplay mechanics, or this particular gameplay mechanic in terms of story, more appealing and more dangerous. And I don't know, it's intense. I'm trying to say that this, instead of pissing me off or bothering me, it's the exact opposite. It makes me want to try to get as many different endings and routes as I can to see all the events unfold, and see what happens and how characters react afterwards. Because there are some incidents that happen in the game, and Keisuke reacts to these incidents, and he leaves the party, and he may not come back ever, Same with Yuzu, actually. So Atsuro, the same. Atsuro is like the same, So I like how incredibly well thought out this game is. Have you ever read one of those adventure books that were a thing in like the 80s and 90s? I choose your own adventure. So it's like that. It's like you just want to read the book over and over and over and over and over again to get everything, to see everything. And you can't believe that the smallest decision can affect your world entirely, because that's pretty realistic. That's a really, I don't know, a pretty realistic approach, because that's what happens in real life. And sometimes we make like these decisions that like seem irrelevant, but if you hadn't made that decision, maybe you will be fucking dead. That's Devil Survivor for you. So that's it, to be completely honest, I could discuss some of the endings, some of the routes, but I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of things about them. I probably should have beat the game again before this episode, but I don't think I need to, because the magic of this game is getting to watch those endings. It's not like, oh no, I'm going to stick to this ending and we're going to have to discuss it and spoil it. Or like in the previous episodes of this podcast, like there's only one or two endings and we gotta talk about them, right? Like Persona 3 or Nier Replicant. Now in here is like, that's the magic, like that there's no point. All the endings are interesting, even the ones that are like kind of like generic or bad, they have their own things. So, I don't know, maybe I should do an entire episode just dedicated to the different endings and discuss that with you guys, but no one's gonna watch that because of the spoilers. So that's it, everybody. That's Devil Survivor for you. Amazing game, love it to pieces. Strongly recommended, like I was saying like 10 minutes ago. And I think you should definitely play it if you like difficult, challenging, and grid-based strategy RPGs. Thank you so much for watching. Did I mention who was my favorite character and why? Because it required... explaining why I require spoilers. Well... I'll be honest, I don't think I have one. Okay, I have a couple of favorite routes, like Naoya and Amane. Izuna also has a very interesting ending, but I feel like he's a bit more like connected to other characters, because there are characters that come in pairs. Like it's not like the Izuna ending or the Kaido ending. It's just like two characters ally with each other. And that's their ending. Not every single character has a different ending. It's just some characters may come together in some things, and so you get locked into their route. For that's yeah, you see, it's a labyrinth, okay? And no, I don't think I have a favorite character. I have least favorite characters who are like Yuzu and Midori, but and maybe Keisuke. But the rest are fine. I think in terms of units. Mary, well, I'll tell you which one was my preferred party. Even though this isn't part of a spoiler section, it's something I should have discussed like half an hour ago. Obviously the protagonist. Obviously Amane, if I'm in her route or I'm in a route where she's playable. And Mari, the best mage in the game. And I also like to have an attacker. Jin is kind of like okay-ish. I prefer Kaida because he's really fucking strong. He's the strongest attacker in the game. Or Atsuro, who also is kind of balanced, more lean towards strength. Okay, that's a good party. But if you got Naoya, the Naoya route, and so you possibly won't be able to get Amane. So stick to, Naoya himself is a great mage. So Naoya and Mari, will be like the best mages out there. So yeah, everybody else is kind of average. Midori, Keisuke. I think most of you won't be able to, won't exactly use them near the end unless they are like mandatory party members. But I don't think so. I don't think you will stick to them. Like you will probably remove Yuzu, Keisuke, Midori, and even Atsuro, in exchange for the other characters who are like optional because they're just much better characters. So in terms of personality, I don't think I have a favorite character. I like the singer. She definitely should have been like a main playable character. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I dislike about her. Like she's kind of obsessed with her teacher, and I don't know, man. So, damn. No, guys, I don't think I have a favorite character in this game. Maybe Naoya, or I don't know, Amane herself. Yeah, since those are my two favorite routes and endings, those are my two favorite characters, I guess. But as a unit, I'm a Mari guy, a Mari guy. because she's like an incredibly powerful mage. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you for listening or watching or whatever. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with your friends. And special thanks to every single Patreon and fan supporter that pretty much supported this episode, because if it wasn't for them, this episode wouldn't exist or wouldn't even have been uploaded here to YouTube. Thank them as well. See you next time.